An air and sea search is continuing for possible survivors of the Edmund Fitzgerald, a 729-foot ore carrier, which apparently broke apart and sunk last night on Lake Superior. The ship and its 29-man crew vanished in a storm with 80-mile-an-hour winds and wave heights up to 25 feet.
For nearly 50 years, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald has rested silently beneath the freezing black waters of Lake Superior. It vanished on a stormy night in 1975 without a single distress call, taking all 29 crew members with it. Theories and rumors spread. Songs were written, and the lake, like the wreck, refused to give up its secrets. But now, a new underwater drone equipped with high-resolution cameras and AI-powered sensors has gone where no human diver could. And look at that. It's just totally, completely shredded and mangled. Yeah, it's like no man's land. I didn't realize just how severe the damage was in between the two sections. What it recorded stunned engineers, silenced skeptics, and left even seasoned investigators shaken. This was not just a shipwreck. This was something far worse. The footage finally answers what happened that night. But the most terrifying part is not what we saw through the drone. It's what we realized about human failure. The pride of the American side. The SS Edmund Fitzgerald was not just another freighter. At the time of its launch on June 8, 1958, it was the largest ship on North America's Great Lakes. Measuring 729 feet in length, 75 feet in width, and towering over 39 feet from keel to deck, the Fitzgerald was longer than 2 football fields. It had a cargo capacity of 26,000 tons, which allowed it to move enough iron ore in one trip to build an entire skyscraper. Beyond size, it boasted some of the most advanced engineering for its time. Radar systems, powerful twin diesel engines, and automated cargo hold systems. It could operate in extremely cold temperatures and was built to slice through ice-laden waters. Many believed that it was unsinkable. But why were so many so sure of this? And what was missed that caused this belief to be shattered? Commissioned by Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company as an investment and leased to Ogle Bay Norton Corporation for operations, the Fitzgerald quickly became the face of Great Lakes shipping. Company executives were proud of what it represented: speed, reliability, and overwhelming industrial capacity. The ship moved taconite pellets from mines in Duluth, Minnesota down through Lake Superior to ports like Detroit and Toledo, powering America's post-war steel demand. Unlike most freighters, the Fitzgerald was equipped with a luxurious crew lounge, a state-of-the-art galley, and even a steward assigned to cater to guests. It frequently carried VIPs from the insurance company and their families, turning routine industrial voyages into floating corporate retreats. Children visited it on school tours. Dock workers paused to watch it load and unload. Local newspapers covered its every record-breaking haul. Among sailors, it had a reputation for staying ahead of schedule and navigating rough weather with barely a tremor. But behind the legend were hidden concerns. Its massive hatches were clamped manually, requiring up to 2 men and hours of physical labor to secure them all. There were no flood sensors in the cargo hold, no alarms to signal a breach. Despite its size and prestige, safety features were basic. If a leak began in the bowels of the ship, who would know? If a wave pushed past the railings, what would warn the crew? The shocking answer: nothing. Still, few questioned the lack of safety features. The Fitzgerald had survived many powerful storms before, so why wouldn't it continue to do that? That was exactly what the shipping companies thought. Confidence in the Fitzgerald's size and past performance became a substitute for real safety upgrades. Captain Ernest Msorley, who took command in 1972, was one of the most respected mariners on the lakes. With over 40 years of sailing experience, including on vessels smaller and more fragile than the Fitzgerald, Msorley knew every corner of the Great Lakes. He was calm under pressure and admired for his discipline. When Msorley was at the helm, crews felt secure. The Fitzgerald had no major accidents in its 17-year career. No serious structural failures had been recorded. By the 1970s, it had become more than a vessel. It was a floating symbol of America's industrial optimism. But symbols, no matter how large or celebrated, are still vulnerable to the realities they were built to defy. The Fitzgerald's final journey began like so many before it, with no warning that the coming storm would destroy more than just steel. Into the storm. On the cold afternoon of November 9th, 1975, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald departed the Burlington Northern Dock in Superior, Wisconsin. It carried more than 26,000 tons of taconite, iron, ore bound for the steel mills of Detroit. The weather was rough, but not alarming. A second ship, the Arthur M. Anderson, was scheduled to follow close behind as support. The Fitzgerald was larger and faster and had crossed this lake hundreds of times before. No one expected this trip to be any different. But by the early hours of November 10th, something began to shift. A low-pressure system surged into a violent storm. The National Weather Service issued warnings, but by the time they were updated, it was already too late. Wind gusts slammed into the lake at over 75 miles per hour. The temperature dropped below freezing. Towering rogue waves formed in all directions, some over 25 feet high. The surface of Lake Superior turned into a black wall of chaos. Sheets of sleet and ice covered the decks, and visibility dropped to nothing. Sometime in the morning, the Fitzgerald's radar failed. It went blind. Captain Sorey now had to rely entirely on the Anderson to guide him, which was difficult in weather this extreme. Around 3:30 p.m., the Fitzgerald reported damage. Vents had torn off and water was coming in, but no one realized quite how much. Mixerly's voice remained calm, but there was tension beneath his words. Something was wrong, and it was getting worse. At 4:10 p.m., Missouri sent another message. The Fitzgerald was now listing heavily. It had lost both radar systems. It was running without sight, warning systems, and possibly without control of the flooding. Captain Cooper on the Anderson could barely see the Fitzgerald through the storm, but when he did, it was riding dangerously low in the water. Each wave lifted it out of view, then dropped it hard. The bow slammed into the lake. The ship was being torn apart from above and below. Night came fast, and the waves grew unpredictable. They weren't rolling anymore. They were pounding, breaking from strange angles, and slamming down. Freezing spray covered everything. The Fitzgerald may have been flooding below the waterline, but no one could know. There were no alarms and no way to check or stop it. Then came the last message. At 7:10 p.m., Missouri's voice broke through the static. We are holding our own. 5 minutes later, the Fitzgerald disappeared from radar. There was no distress call, no beacon, no flare. The ship was there, then was suddenly gone. The Anderson tried to reach the crew, but no one answered. They scanned the horizon, but found no lights or any wreckage, only wind, ice, and darkness. It was as if the Fitzgerald had vanished before their eyes. All 29 men were gone with no chance to say goodbye. For decades, what happened in those final 5 minutes was left to speculation. No camera saw it. No witness survived it. But now, nearly 50 years later, technology has developed allowing researchers to get close to this infamous vessel. For the first time, an underwater drone equipped with high-resolution sonar and deep-penetrating sensors has returned to the exact coordinates where radar last tracked the Fitzgerald.